What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, I want to go over what would the best case scenario be for the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC playoff picture. So we got 4 scenarios for you guys to dive into on today's show. But before we do so, I was looking at some of the analytics here at Chat Sports, and our Lions Talk channel almost has double the amount of subscribers we have here at Vikings Now. So if you guys haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Obviously, we're not going to be able to catch them off today's show, but if you guys want to help support us here at Vikings Now by Chat Sports, hit that subscribe button, lock us in as your go-to Vikings YouTube channel. Now, first off, some clinching scenarios for the Minnesota Vikings. If they win this weekend versus Chicago Bears, where you are a 7-point favorite, you will clinch at least the 7th seed in the NFC playoff picture. And also Rams-Niners tonight. If the Niners win that game, the Vikings will clinch as well. Then also if the Arizona Cardinals or Seattle Seahawks lose this week, they will be clinched in for the playoff picture. But this is how the playoff picture shakes out right now. Obviously got the Detroit Lions at the number 1 seed, the Eagles hold down the number 2 seed. Then you got the Seahawks winning the NFC West at 8-5. They're the number 3. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually jumped the Atlanta Falcons this past weekend. So they're the 4 seed. So right now, if the playoffs ended, the Vikings would be in Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. But let's just go through some ideal scenarios. So number 1 is obviously you land the number 1 seed in the entire NFC. And the Vikings still have a very good chance to do so. But to land the number 1 seed, you have to catch the Lions in the NFC North. So the most simple way how you win the NFC North would be the Minnesota Vikings. They went out. They go 15-2 then the season. And then the Lions just have to lose one more game besides obviously them losing to the Minnesota Vikings in Week 18. And if you look at the Lions' schedule here, they got some losable games coming up. Now, honestly, I think they could drop all 3 of these games. Probably won't happen, but there's a chance. Now, they got the Bills at home this weekend, which shout out to the Rams for beating the Bills. So hopefully they come into that game a little pissed off, and maybe they try to get a win this weekend in Detroit. But then they're in Chicago Week 16. They're in San Francisco the week before on Monday night. They play the Minnesota Vikings. So if they just drop a game to the Bills, Bears, or the Niners, and the Vikings win in Week 18, hey, you will be the number 1 seed in the NFC conference. But, I was thinking about this. Oh, there's still some fans out there who think the NFL is rigged. And if you think the NFL is rigged, they will do what they can to have that Week 18 game versus the Vikings and the Lions mean something. Now, whether that's the Lions need to beat the Vikings to get the number 1 seed, even if they already have the division wrapped up, or it could just be for the NFC North title and the number 1 seed in the NFC conference. But there is another route for the number 1 seed where the Vikings don't have to completely win out here. So the Vikings win out, but they do lose to the Seahawks, and then the Lions would have to lose a game to the Niners or the Bears, because how the tiebreakers would shake out, it would come down to conference records. So, a loss to the Bills necessarily wouldn't help the Vikings if the Lions do so. But if the Vikes lose to the Seahawks and then the Lions lose to either the Niners or Bears on the road and they still went out, then the Vikings can still land that number 1 seed. But let's talk about the best route with the number 5 seed. So, the Vikings, this is going to be most likely where they end up in the NFC. They have a 2-game lead plus the tiebreaker over the Green Bay Packers. And let's just say you can't jump the Lions for that number 1 seed. So, number 5 seed, who would be my ideal matchup for the Minnesota Vikings? It would probably be the Seahawks or the Falcons. Now, obviously, I'll take the Falcons over Seattle there. But again, if you had to play either of these teams, I feel confident with the Vikings, even if they have to go on the road to beat either of these teams. But 2 teams I would be scared of on the other side of it would be the Rams and the Buccaneers. The Rams, for obvious reasons, the Vikings already lost to them, and I think the Rams are a very dangerous team. Now, do I think the Rams can go win 3 straight games and make the Super Bowl? Probably not. But in just a 1 game, in Los Angeles, the Rams can really beat any team in the NFC conference. Like the Lions, Eagles, any of those guys could lose to the Rams. And then the Buccaneers, they got an explosive offense. I know that secondary is terrible, but I would still be scared of the Buccaneers over the Falcons. Now, I will say this. If the Vikings do land the number 5 seed in the NFC, and let's just say they win that game and the Packers get the 6 and the Packers beat whoever that 3 seed is, then the Vikings would most likely be traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles in the divisional round. Now, personally, I would love this matchup for the Minnesota Vikings because, one, I can't stand the Philadelphia Eagles. And plus, I think the Vikings would actually win that game. I think, just the coaching staff advantage that the Vikings would have. And plus, they are very good against the run, which is the Eagles' bread and butter. And with the drama going on in Philly right now, like, I could easily see the Eagles kind of going pumpkin mode as a team down the stretch here, and I could see the Vikings picking up a big-time win. So if it is in Philly, in the divisional, first off, that would be an hell of a game. That would get a ton of viewership there, but also I think the Vikings would have a good chance to win. But speaking of the Eagles, I want you guys to get rowdy down below in the comment section. If you guys can't stand Philadelphia and those dirty birds, just give me an F-Phil or FPHI down below in the comment section to kind of start the competition versus the Eagles, because I think eventually the Vikings will have to play them in the playoffs. So if you guys hate the Eagles, give me an F Philly down below in the comments section. Now, we'll dive into more scenarios here in a second, but first off, I want to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. And if you guys head to factormeals.com/50VikingsChat and use code 50VikingsChat, you guys will get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50VikingsChat at factormeals.com/50VikingsChat to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. Now, notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do list aren't. Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals from breakfast to dinner and anything in between. Factor has easy options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like your routine or enjoy mixing things up, Factor has you covered with 35 delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options you can add to your box, like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smoothies. So don't let the shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Now, we have busy days here at Chat Sports just covering the Minnesota Vikings. It is a 24/7 job, and I don't always feel like, making a home-cooked meal, and that's why Factor has completely changed my life. And the best part about Factor is they just let you do you. You can choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories and maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. So head to factormeals.com/50VikingsChat and use code 50VikingsChat to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50VikingsChat at factormeals.com/50VikingsChat to get 50% off your first box plus shipping while your subscription is active. That link for you guys in the comments and the description of today's show. All right, another ideal scenario for the Minnesota Vikings would just be you land the #2 seed. Now, how would this happen? Would obviously be the Vikings win the NFC North, but then the Eagles would obviously win out. They go 15-2. The Vikings lose the game, but still win in North, so they're 14-3. Philly is 15-2. And again, you wouldn't love having to go to Philly in the NFC Championship game if that's how it ends up shaking out. But, still having the #2 seed, you would guarantee yourself at least 2 home playoff games, which would be huge for this defense. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But, ideally, you would play Washington in this spot, not Green Bay or even like the Rams. Like, what if the Rams don't win the NFC West, but they somehow get that 7 seed in the playoffs? Like, I would be a little bit nervous about Sean McVay and crew coming to town. But, if it's the Washington Commanders, I'm very confident in the Vikings winning. And again, Green Bay Packers, that would be a tough matchup, just playing that divisional team for a 3rd time in the season. I mean, it would be an intense game, a physical game, and it would not be the, ideal scenario for the Minnesota Vikings. But I think home field advantage, like, obviously you want the #1 seed, you want that bye, you just want that chance to win 2 home playoff games and get to the Super Bowl. But home field advantage will be huge for the Vikings in the playoffs because #1, it's this defense. And, if you add the combination of what Brian Flores likes to do, where he's running that typical mug look, where it's 6, 7, 8 guys lined up on the line of scrimmage, and you got to pick and choose who's coming as the quarterback, and, going through that decision-making, having that crowd noise being rained on you from US Bank Stadium, it would definitely be intimidating for an opposing team offense. But what makes the Vikings defense so special? #1, they're great against the rush. 2nd in the league. And also sacks. They have 40 on the season, which is 4th in the National Football League, and they take the football away with 27 takeaways, only 1 behind the Pittsburgh Steelers at 2nd in the league. So you can stop the run, you can get pressure on the quarterback, and you can take away the football. That's all the ingredients of having a true Super Bowl defense here in Minnesota. And plus, you add the icing on the cake, the crowd noise. I think it would be, again, ideal for the Vikings to land that 2 seed. But, this would be the worst case scenario for the Vikings, but the best 6 seed route. Now, this would be the hypothetical where it's like the Vikings, tail off at the end of the year. The Packers beat you. They jump you for that number 5 seed. And, just looking at the playoff picture, like, is there a real big difference between the 5 and the 6 seed in the conference? No, not necessarily. But you would just, landing the 6 seed, you would probably have to play the Lions right away, because if you are the 6 seed, and, only way you don't play the Lions would be if, like, Washington Commanders beat the Eagles or the Rams, and they would go to Detroit. And then you would most likely probably have to go to Green Bay as that 5 seed. But again, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But, let's just say the Vikings do have to go on the road. Yes, I would be worried about it, but the Vikings are also 6-1 on the road this season. You've already gone in the Lambeau and got a win. You've already proven to, not only the fans, but to yourself in that organization that if it does come down to the worst case scenario, 3 straight road games in the playoffs, you still give yourself that puncher's chance because of how good you have been on the road. So those are all the kind of ideal scenarios for the Vikings playoff run this season. But if you guys watch this whole thing and made it to the end, give me a skull down below in the comment section. We'll use this as a real one roll call on today's show. So if you guys give me a skull down below, I'll show you guys some love in the comment section. And also, I'm on Twitter at Pat Sieps, the Twitter handle. Give me a follow over there, and we'll see you guys next time. As always, Skull Vikes.